Hi, you are watching Sites Plus and this is Romesh Srivastava. Please do subscribe the channel for the HR news, for HR updates, and conversation with the top-notch CHROs, thought leaders, and business heads. Today, I'm really excited to welcome world-renowned thought leader, the best-selling author, and he's also known as the father of Getting Things Done, GTD. He's none other than David Allen. Welcome, David.
Thanks, Ramesh. Thanks for the invitation. Happy to be here.
David, many congratulations to you. Recently, you have launched your new book that is Team Getting Things Done with Others. So, why this new book?
Yeah. Well, we filled a gap. I've been doing this work, GTD work, for 40 years. And, we've trained a whole, thousands and thousands and thousands of individuals in terms of their own personal productivity practices. And then they go back into environments that were dysfunctional, where they still used GTD, but it was more in defense of dysfunctional teams, dysfunctional processes, and so forth that were going on. So we thought, my co-author and I had lunch together about 4 years ago in Amsterdam here, and said, there's got to be a way to fill that gap in terms of what are the best practices and they're actually all getting things done principles just applied to groups of people has a huge effect. And so, we know we've worked with senior teams who got trained in GTD and then watched how that affected their culture in a very positive way. And we thought, well, instead of having that just be ad hoc, kind of randomly happening, let's figure out what the formula was that worked. So that's essentially the new book that we just produced. It's really a manual about the mechanics of what are the best practices for people getting stuff done with other people. Pretty universal stuff.
Yeah, that's wonderful, David, filling the gap. But I would request if you can also help us to understand that what are the basic principles of getting things done. So, that would be great.
Well, the three basic models, that I uncovered and objectified, over all these years, that then became part of the GTD canon or lexicon. Uh, One is the 5 stages of what you need to do to get things under control and stable in a situation: capture, clarify, organize, reflect, and then engage. And those are different techniques. We do them all. If you want to get your kitchen under control or you want to get anything under control, you just may not be that conscious about those different aspects of it. And each one of those aspects has a huge impact if a team applies it. And then there's the model of how do I set priorities, and that's what I discovered or uncovered or objectified, called the 6 horizons of focus, or horizons of your commitments: purpose, vision, goals, areas of focus and accountability, projects, and action. And those have very different content, but they're all quite relevant to whether a team is focused on the right stuff. And then the third model, which is kind of the sleeper inside of getting things done, which is the natural planning model. How do you take a project or a situation and walk it through most effectively to have it be appropriately focused and in control? And that's, purpose, vision, brainstorm, organize, and action. And so, again, this is not, as I say, it's not rocket science unless you're building rockets. Then it is. Uh, it's essentially advanced common sense, but it's common sense that a lot of teams and people and individuals could improve on a lot. The main thing, Romesh, that's wrong out there in terms of people's productivity is they're trying to use their head as their office, and your head's a crappy office. Your brain did not evolve to remember, remind, prioritize, or manage relationships between more than 4 things. That's cognitive science data now. But I just discovered that 40 years ago, that your head's for having ideas, but not for hanging on to them. It doesn't do that very well. Your brain does brilliant stuff. You're doing it right now. That's a computer. That's a light. That's a person. Those are glasses. As opposed to just vibrations of light and sound. So who knows how many million years ago, as we evolved, our brain, just to keep us in survival mode in our current reality, just tried to make sense out of whatever that current reality was. And it does that brilliantly, doing it now. Computers can barely even start to mimic that. But yet you go to the store for lemons, you come back with 6 things and no lemons. What happened? You try to use your head to remember, remind, prioritize, and manage, and it just doesn't do that very well. So learning to build an external brain where you externalize all of your commitments in some sort of external form that then you engage with appropriately. So you keep it current, you keep it relevant, you keep it accessible, so that you don't have to keep remembering what you need to take to the office. You put it in front of the door so you can't forget it in the morning. So it's in a way kind of that simple. It's just that most people don't do that for most of the commitments they have in their life.
Yeah, thank you for sharing the six very important steps of getting things done. I think, David, once if you have decided the goal, and then if you want to create the team, a healthy and high performance team, so I think that is also very important. So, what is your advice on this?
Well, you can have high performance, and there are a lot of teams that are high performing, but they're burning people out. And people are leaving because they're too stressed. It's too much for their health. Not only that, there are a lot of high performing teams that don't know how to recreate that. Especially in the hybrid world now, if you have 5 people leave and then 5 new people come on, do you know how to manage that? Do you know how to structure that and recreate, what you were doing that was successful? So a lot of successful teams are successful, but don't know how they did that and can't reproduce it. And also, it may not be sustainable. In other words, can you keep that team? Can you keep the team structure when change happens? And change can happen fast, as we all know. So that's a lot of what we wrote in the book, was what are the basic principles that you need to apply in any situation. And we define team in a very broad way. Anytime you want to get something done with somebody else, a taxi ride, your family, all those are teams where you want to get things done and you have other people involved in the process of getting it done. And what are those basic principles? Because you're not born doing this. I mean, maybe we sort of are, but we aren't. It's kind of like you're not born knowing how to cook spaghetti or cook rice or do the tango, or those are things you have to learn. So there's a learning process about how do I learn how to work with other people most effectively. And what we don't do in the book is talk about a lot of the team dynamics, like relationships and communication and whatever. We deal a lot more with the more mundane aspects of the mechanics, if you will, of how a team works together. Because if the mechanics don't work well, it's very hard for the team to focus on the bigger stuff, more important stuff that it wants to get done. If meetings are late starting, if meetings are not clear in terms of their purpose, if meetings end without people being clear about what they decided and who's going to do what about it, these are things that if you get that right, it can change your culture. You don't have to transform people or transform the company. You just need to get the mechanics right about how you work together, how you communicate with each other, and agreements that you make, and follow through on. I've coached many, 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 many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of executive senior people that get a big aha. Oh my God, keeping an agenda list. That is, here's all the stuff I want to talk to my direct about or my assistant about next time he or she and I meet together. Wow, what a concept. Keeping track of those kinds of things, as opposed to it suddenly occurs to me, let me go interrupt them. That's not effective, not productive.
So, yeah, absolutely. Meeting clarity, goal clarity, this is very important. But I think we should also focus on another aspect. Maybe sometimes the delegation of work, what you can do, what you want to delegate the work to the team members. That is also very important. So, what is your take on this?
Huge. It's huge. Yeah, we have a whole chapter on delegation, really, in the book. And it's really about a lot of people hesitate to delegate because they graduated because they were really good at something, and so they feel more comfortable doing what they were really good at as opposed to the new stuff they've been expected to now do. And they're supposed to hand that other stuff off. Well, that's uncomfortable for a lot of people, just to do that. But if you don't do that, if you're not delegating, you're very much limiting your career. It's a big step to graduate from doing the work to managing people doing the work. That's a big step in terms of management development, and so for them, not everybody's really that comfortable with doing that, and so they'll tend to slide back to comfortable behavior as opposed to, okay, how do I hand this off? And a lot of people don't hand things off because they don't trust their own system to track it. They go, well, how can I hand this off and be sure that it's going to happen? Well, that's in addition to keeping an agenda list for your staff, keep a waiting for list of everything you're waiting on to come back from somebody else, whether that's your staff or another department or something you ordered that hasn't come yet, or whatever. And so keeping a waiting for a list and keeping track of what you need to talk to people about. I've seen that instantly. Executives just I finish my coaching or consulting with them, and they literally instantly start implementing those things. And it can make a huge difference in terms of work getting done, and work getting done in a much less stressful way.
Yeah, absolutely. What you can do and what can be delegated to the team. Absolutely. That's great. That's great. I think after the delegation of work, then the tracking of performance, that is also very important. And when we are talking about the team performance, then there may be certain factors that will influence the team performance and productivity. According to you, what are these factors which influence the team performance and productivity as well?
Well, we have two whole chapters we wrote about principles and standards. What are the standards? What are your rules of engagement? If you're on this team, how do we play together? What can we agree on that are the basic parameters of how we get? What would bother us if something happened? What would bother us on this team if what went true, or if somebody did something? What is that? And so finding out what those standards are, and it doesn't mean being too rigorous or didactic about it. It just means, look, how often will we respond to emails? Or our meetings? We've worked with some companies that at very senior levels, they decided, look, if you're invited to a meeting and the purpose of the meeting is not clear and the role you're supposed to play in that meeting is not clear, you don't have to go. That's a standard, right? You don't have to transform people. You just have to get clear about, look, that's how we're going to play. That's the most effective way for us to play together, so you're not wasting anybody's time. How late can meetings start and you still feel comfortable? How much, what's the loaded payroll cost that go down the toilet if you're 10 minutes late to a meeting and you're required to be there, right? Or, how many digital devices can people have open in a meeting that have nothing to do with what the meeting is about? Why are they even there? Go away, get out of here. They're not required. And so those are like standards or principles of how we play together. And you need those. Again, they don't have to be too stringent. They just need to be clear. So when you get a new person on the team, they need to know how to play. So oftentimes it's very good to write those down and have those in some written form. Look, guys, here's how we play. Da, 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 da. Here's our principles that we work together. And, that's very, very valuable, especially if you have team members coming in and out, especially if you have subcontractors, especially if you're dealing with virtual now around the world and global people. What are their standards about going to a Zoom meeting? We wouldn't legislate what exactly those should be, but the team should.
Would we also see sometime the managing the emotions of team members? That is also very important. Do you agree?
I don't deal with that.
You don't take, okay.
If they get the mechanics right, the emotions are going to clear up a lot. A lot of the emotions show up because people let things fall through the cracks. They're not keeping agreements. They're ambiguous meetings, there are, a lot of unclear stuff that can create all kinds of negative emotions. That if those things get cleared up, you don't necessarily, have those. I don't have to like you, Ramesh, as long as we agree about how we're going to work together.
Absolutely.
I don't care what your personality is. As long as we agree on how we're going to play, I may not spend time with you after hours, you know, that's okay. But as long as we can agree on how we're going to work together and what are those principles and how we're going to engage with each other, that can make a huge difference just in the emotions of the team. But we don't get into that. But there's a lot of people have written all kinds of stuff about that and collaboration and charisma and leadership and so forth. And we just don't even touch into that because a lot of those things are kind of hard to address, but there's all kinds of resources out there to help people do that. What's missing is the basics of what a high performing, healthy team needs to do in terms of the mechanics of how they work together.
And David, how do you see the engagement of team with the purpose? How it is important?
I guess it's important because, people need to feel like they're doing good work, and, a lot of the recent surveys, Gallup and other people, have basically said, 80% of the workforce doesn't feel engaged with their work. Well, that's kind of not a way to spend your life. Actually, people like to get things done. They like to accomplish. Teams love to, make things happen. That's why they're a team, is to make that work. So if that's working, it's a whole lot easier than for people to feel engaged with it. If it's not working, it's very easy for people to disengage and not be involved. And basically go, oh, got another team meeting. Geez, maybe I can get out of this. Or, wow, I can't wait till the next team meeting so we can move this thing forward that we're all excited about. Those are very different attitudes.
Yeah, right. David, engaging the team, that is also very challenging. And, there are a lot of researchers and which are indicating that team engagement is getting down. How the leaders can engage the team? What is your take on this?
Well, be clear about the purpose. What's the purpose of the team? See, a lot of teams either forgot what the purpose was, never knew what it was, or haven't reinvigorated it. Like, why are we here, guys? What would be off purpose for us? We have a whole chapter on saying no, big chapter. It's hard to say no, though, if the team doesn't know everything it's committed to. So a lot of what our work is in writing the book was say, okay, guys, how are you keeping track of all the commitments the team has? If you haven't kept track of all the projects the team has taken on, you're always going to overcommit and say yes to stuff you shouldn't say yes to. And all that comes back to what's the purpose of the team? What would be off purpose if we spend our resources or our attention on this versus that? But you need to know, like, I've said in terms of individual productivity, you can only feel good about what you're not doing when you know what you're not doing. Very few people have that inventory of what they're not doing. And so they're just being driven by latest and loudest. And a lot of teams are.
Yeah, right, right. Many times, David, you are also talking about the stress-free environment where the employees can perform better, the performance of employees can be evolved. So, how the companies can ensure the stress-free environment? What's your advice on this?
Well, if a team works together well, again, I don't have to like you personally, but if we work together well, it turns out I'll probably like you more personally, in the process. So again, a lot of it's about, productive working together and then let the chips fall as they may in terms of getting people involved. But a lot of it is how do you model it? First of all, who owns the team? Who's the owner? Who makes the judgment call in terms of what you do and you don't do as a team? Somebody has to. Whenever two or more are responsible, usually nobody is. So somebody needs to kind of take ownership, and then they need to decide, what do I need to do to get people more involved or more engaged? Who's not? Stay home. Don't get in the way. The train's leaving. You're either on board or you're not. That may sound a little harsh, but no, it's a real it's a real thing. But you have to model it. You have to be engaged. If you're leading the team and you're not engaged, you're showing up late at meetings, you're not taking notes in the meeting, you don't care, you're not keeping track of the things you're delegated or handed off to other people. You follow up when it blows up instead of when it shows up. Oh, come on. Those are just, very suboptimal behaviors to model for your team. Why should your team do anything different? So, stuff rolls downhill.
Yeah, that's a great idea. You need to engage with the team first. David, we have discussed about the goal clarity, and I think one more important factor is the overlapping of goals sometimes. So, how do you see that? How the leaders can evade the overlapping of goals?
Yeah, very few people are only on one team. First of all, if you have a roommate or you have a life partner, you're on at least two teams, right? And oftentimes people are on a lot more than one team. So then that then comes down to their accountability to manage themselves. How do they keep track individually of all the commitments they've got relative to all the teams they're on? And so then they can have a more intelligent conversation, on the team about what they're willing to take on and what they can't, what they don't have the bandwidth to do. So yeah, it's a critical area because you're not just on one team. If it was just one team, that's one thing. But man, the complexity goes way up if you're on more than one team because each team wants to be doing what it needs to be doing to fulfill its purpose. And so that can oftentimes run into a misallocation of resources.
Yeah, David, I think we have discussed about how to handle the team. And if I look at the book, so there is one question, and why I should buy this book? What is the USP of this book? What would be the advantage if someone buy and read this book?
What they'll do is, it's a whole manual, and not every team needs everything in there. A lot of teams are already functioning and already doing stuff well, but most every team that we've ever run across has some improvement opportunities. So this would be more like a manual to scan through it. If I were consulting to the team, I'd have everybody buy the book and then read through it, and then let's have a discussion. What is it? What showed up as you were reading this book that we're doing or we're not doing that either increases or decreases our productivity as a team? Because every team is very different, very, very different. And so that's why we're not planning to design any kind of a training around this. It's more of a consulting manual. Like if I were consulting to your team, I'd walk in and just, straight away I go, well, what has the team's attention? That's the first thing to do. It's like discover what's not on cruise control for the team. And then what do you need to do about that? What do you need to do to get this back onto cruise control so it's off the mind of the team? And so these are just some of the basic things that come out of GTD, but that's also why they're so critical for teams. So again, as we said, you could take this book and open it at random, any 2 pages, and I guarantee you'll read something. Go, oh, yeah, we should do that, or we should stop doing that, or whatever. Because we got it. I think we did a pretty thorough job of assessing what's functional and what's dysfunctional when people are trying to work together.
David, I think we have covered the subject. Anything else which is important and we did not touch you?
No, I think we covered it.
Thank you so much, David, for joining this insightful conversation. And my congratulations again for the launch of your new book, Team Getting Things Done with Others. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Romesh. Thanks for the invitation. This was fun.